I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, here today to review a 2010 album, The Arcade Fire's The Suburbs. What a monolith of an album. Man, The Arcade Fire is just on fire. They're one of my favorite bands, starting with Funeral and then Neon Bible. It was a step down, but a solid album. Funeral, one of the best albums of the 2000s, and then in 2010, The Suburbs, which is a 16-track, just monster. And it is a concept album, which is a cool step for them. There's always been some conceptuality behind Win Butler and The Arcade Fire's lyrics, but it's taken to the next iteration and a full concept release from The Arcade Fire here. And man, at first, I want to get this disclaimer out there because I know both Tom and I experienced this, but this album takes significant listens, multiple listens, for you to actually get it, for you to actually really start to like it. Some people might like this on first try. I didn't really feel like until the fifth listen.
I was actually disappointed with it until like the fourth listen.
I mean, I was just kind of like, to the level that I would say that it was my least favorite, and then as time went on, I love it now. I mean, this album is really what encompasses everything I'm looking for in music, and it's going to get a very high score for me because of that. But one thing that they do is they really they have a more focused sound on this one, and you know, the whole concept behind the album is the suburbs, and they wanted to Win and Will Butler, the two brothers, and Win is kind of the head of the band from what we've interpreted. And you know, they grew up in the suburbs, and they wanted to kind of relate their feelings in this album about that. And so the whole thing kind of has an 80s-esque vibe to it that they wanted to infuse some of the music they listened to when they lived in the suburbs there. So there's kind of a big, you get a lot of Bruce Springsteen influence, even a little Depeche Mode from what some research that I've done. And it's a really different sound for them, but it's a really nice sound. It's still definitely the Arcade Fire, but it's still definitely a different move for them, which I really like. Tom, what do you think so far about the Suburbs?
Well, definitely I agree with you. This is a true album feel. It's an album listen, and that story really helps with it. The story of them growing up in the suburbs. It was Houston, right? Before they moved to Canada. And it has this just like microcosmic, just claustrophobic almost feel. Just like, you know, because it's a story about, you know, these kids growing up in the suburbs, and it's like, in the suburbs, you're just kind of faceless, kind of a nobody. It's hard to get out of. You know, a lot of people end up feeling like they're stuck there, and you get that feeling from the music. So for them to be able to portray and convey that message and that just feeling in this is incredible. But let's face it, these guys have never really had that much problem conveying feeling in a song.
Not at all.
They're masters at it.
Not at all.
So definitely better album feel than Neon Bible. Probably even better album feel than Funeral. Yet, there aren't as many standout tracks. It really relies on itself as an entire listen. I mean, Funeral, you go to Funeral, you pick out any one song, and on its own it's going to be incredible. You can't do that as much with this.
There are some that really stand out, but not to the same level that Funeral did.
Exactly. You know? But here's the thing. These guys are smart. They're crafty. They know ways to get around it. Like, they've got these two sets of songs, Half-Light 1 and 2, and then Sprawl 1 and 2. And to me, at least, Half-Light 1 and Sprawl 1 aren't as standout. If you listen to those on their own, they're still good, but they're not, you know, they act as leading into the next song. Which, obviously, with the titles of the songs, they set you up for that. So there's, you know, if they were just titled something completely different, they would almost seem weaker. But since they're saying to you, they're giving to you right up front, these songs are going to support the next one, you don't even care, and it adds to that album listen. So much more consistent sound. You get a lot of repeated lyrics about the suburbs. You know, I mean, you have the word suburb in some, you know, way in 3 of the tracks. And you have, you know, like the line, in the suburbs you taught me how to drive, and you told me you would never survive. You got that a couple times.
And then they're referencing, in track 1, The Suburbs, they reference a suburban war, which track 9 is Suburban War.
Yeah, exactly. So it ties everything together so perfectly, so perfectly. But the big thing to me that I was talking to Jake about is just the story. And the feeling that, I'm saying feeling a lot, I'm like Blue 182 here. But anyways, I lost my train of thought now. But what I love about it is that it's this very emotional, very personal to Win and Will Butler, but they leave it open-ended. They leave it somewhat ambiguous, and that is the beauty of this album, because by the time you get to track 15, Sprawl 2, which is just this beautiful, just huge, slightly optimistic sounding song, if they'd ended it on that, it would have felt like the end of the story. But then they revisit the Suburbs song, and it's even darker and like more mysterious, and it fades out, and it's perfect. It's perfect because it reminds you, what it says to you is it's reminding you that this is just a snapshot of their experience living in the suburbs and growing up there, but that really their experience has been repeated multiple times through multiple generations of different people, and it's still happening today. There's still people in the suburbs feeling exactly how they felt. And to me at least, I don't know, maybe if you think I'm overanalyzing it, let me know. But that's exactly what it said to me right off the bat. It's saying, you know what, this is just us. We're not saying that we're necessarily anything special. This is what's happening. This is still what's happening, and it leaves it ambiguous. You don't know if it was necessarily a good or a bad experience for them. It just was. It was just an experience that they felt was worth relating and interpreting.
And a lot of the lyrics also revolve leaving the suburbs and going and finding some sort of like nature. So there's a lot of things that you can read into with that. And overall, I really got into this album because I just moved into West Des Moines, Iowa, which is a very suburban town, and so it was I could actually see some of the lyrics in place in that town, and I got into it because of that. The music, though, fantastic. I mean, these guys have a way of just having the most normal sounding on the surface. If you just listen to this on a surface, like in the background, it'll just sound like background, like just an ordinary song. But if you really focus and listen to it, some of the most intense instrumentals you've ever seen. The Arcade Fire has this special power to where they can make simple sounding instrumentals, but make them so powerful, so intense, and convey a message so well that they're just undeniably, I think, one of the best bands out there right now. These guys are talented. If you're not listening to the Arcade Fire, something's wrong with you. These guys are the biggest and best thing out there right now, and you got to pay attention to them because they haven't put out anything bad yet, and they're following it up with the Suburbs, and I absolutely love this album. But before we go on, I picked 5 tracks out of the 16. Track 2, Ready to Start, is just this unbelievably powerful song, and that's really the song that comes to mind when I talk about just those powerful yet simple instrumentals, just driving force. And the lyrics are phenomenal. Track 9, Suburban War, might be one of my favorite songs of all time. I can't stop listening to it, and it's this song that starts off just like a normal song with just this kind of minor key guitar part, and then it goes. It flows on, and there's these different forms of the song where it just gets more powerful and builds and gets faster, and I really like that. I really like how they kind of convey that emotional sense to it. And then the back half of this album is really what I fell in love with before the first half. I felt like some of the songs were stronger on the back half. I don't feel that way anymore. I think they were just more accessible to me. But track 12, Deep Blue, the album gets more intense as it goes on, which is something that I really like. It's back heavy in intensity, and makes for an even more rewarding listen if you listen to the whole thing straight through. Track 12, Deep Blue. Track 13, We Used to Wait, has this Wolf Parade-esque Freak Out, another band from Canada. Sprawl 1 and Sprawl 2, but specifically Sprawl 2. I mean, this album, you could pick out every single track on this album. It really just is an amazing release as a whole. You have to listen to it as a whole, so.
Yeah.
So go ahead and pick your tracks.
I'm going to pick tracks 4 and 5, Rococo and Empty Room. I'm also going to pick track 13, We Used to Wait, and track 15, Sprawl 2.
Awesome. And I'm just going to go ahead and get this out there. I give this a perfect 100. This is exactly what I'm looking for in an album. I want this level of conceptuality, this quality, this able to convey emotion. This is what I want in an album, so it's a perfect score for me.
You know, we talked about this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 97.
I mean, the high quality album. I definitely think we both recommend it.
Yeah.
Get out there and listen to this one because this is one of the best albums of 2010. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
That was the Arcade Fire's The Suburbs. We are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.